Let's see what Maxi Pena has to say about this.
One of the biggest changes, too, is the younger generations themselves, which I like to call the Y generation, WHY generation. See, because they need an answer to that question for everything they do. This may be an aha moment for some of you. It is when I travel around North America. But when you ask a young person in your sphere of influence to do something, whether in your home, your classroom, or your place of business, and they look back at you and they say, well, why should I do it that way? Most of us take that as a smart aleck response. And we, of course, give the all-American response back, which is, because I said so. Here's the aha, though. Most young people don't mean it as a smart aleck response. What most young people are saying to you is, hey, look, why do we do it this way? Because there has to be a better way to do this. Look, I'm unique, I'm special, I'm important, I'm intelligent, I'm resourceful, I know how to use technology. Why do we do it this way? Because there has to be a way to use Google something. There has to be a way to put it in the cloud. There has to be a way to get a bigger impact. And yet, we cut their knees out from underneath them and we don't give them the opportunity to try. See, what's extraordinary about young people today is most everything you see and hear about young people in the world today is largely negatively slanted, right? They're lazy, they're entitled, they're this, they're that. Don't believe it for a minute. I go completely the other way. I think young people in this country today, Generation Y millennials and Generation Z. Generation Z goes from 6 years old to 24 years old. Generation Y millennials, 25 to 40 years old. And I think both groups is what I call the younger generations. I think they're the most extraordinary generations to come down the pike. I think they are the most intelligent, resourceful, and pit bull-like generations that we have ever seen in this country. When they see a want to in their life, something they truly want, they will move heaven and earth to get to that want to. Our challenge as parents, educators, employers, is getting them to want something. That's where the battlefield of the future is, because when they want it, they're all in. And so working with this Y generation means that we have to recognize that there must be purpose in all that they do so that we can connect the dots and allow them to move forward. But another part of the puzzle and another part of connecting the dots is that young people today hardly if ever hear the branch creak in their lives. Hardly if ever hear the branch creak. So if I were to ask a lot of you from all over, North America, how many of you have ever climbed a tree before? My guess is a significant number of you at some point in your life has been up in a tree. I mean, I used to climb trees when I was a kid. In fact, we used to live out our imaginations in the trees. Oh man, it was glorious. When I was about 10 years old, I was in a tree and I was up about 30 feet. I was with two of my friends and we would go in for hours. And I'm up about 30 feet, which is a perilous height. And while I'm up that far, I was standing next to the trunk and I moved out on this really firm limb and I was standing there and I was surveying the world around me when suddenly the limb underneath me cracks. Literally, not only could you hear it crack, but I could actually feel it like in a pitchfork kind of way go up through my legs and into my spine. And it was at that moment that you get that four-letter expletive feeling right in your belly, right? Right where you get that you're in absolute peril. Can you imagine that happening? If this has ever happened to you, can you think back on it? If it has never happened to you, can you imagine that happening to you? And so at that moment, there are three things that happen. Number one, you become singularly focused, right? I did. Didn't matter what stresses and challenges I had getting into the tree. Didn't matter who I thought was cute at school. I was now focused on the task at hand. Second thing that happens is you start strategic planning. Wouldn't you? I sure did. How am I going to get back to the safety of the trunk? What am I going to grab? Where am I going to fall? Third thing that happens is you take action. In fact, I submit to you that you take massive action. And all three of those things literally happen in the blink of an eye. Boom, 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 right? Focus, plan, action. Boom, I was back to the safety of the trunk, right? It was harrowing, but I got back to safety. See, I believe the branch creaks in our lives many times. Anytime there's a fear of loss or a sense of urgency, the branch creaks a little bit, and it forces us to focus, to plan, and to take action. See, I learned as a young man, and maybe some of you did too, that growth in our lives happen when in fact we step outside our comfort zone, almost never when we are inside our comfort zone. So that to me, when the branch creaks in our lives, these are the golden moments of life. Because these are the moments where we get a chance to focus, to plan, and to take the necessary action that allows us to put things in a proper, pivot or adaptation into our life. Today in America, young people need three critical things to develop a tremendous competitive advantage in their life. And in these three things, they have to work together to create a synergy for young people. The first of these three things is robust academic knowledge. Robust academic knowledge is critically important. It's critically important today. It was 5 years ago, 50 years ago. It's still important today. But here's where the world's changed. You know, there was a time in America where you could have just robust academic knowledge and you would do pretty well. In fact, the more robust academic knowledge you had, the more what you would make. If you said money, you're correct. Because the more money, you know, some of us who are even a little bit older, remember the stair steps? If you had this much education, you made this. If you had this much education, you made this, so much, right? And we remember those things. This is where the world's changed. It's not necessarily true anymore. It's not necessarily untrue. It's just not necessarily true either. There's now two critical things you have to add to robust academic knowledge. The first of these is technical competencies. Technical competencies are those things you can do in your head and in your hands. So whether you want to be a surgeon or an accountant, a chef or an auto tech, whether you want to be a software programmer or someone in bioscience, no matter where you go, you have to have the technical competencies to be able to do it. And a lot of employers today are training for technical competencies, but young people today need to start learning them at younger ages so that they have the ability to pivot and adapt to whatever the world throws at them. And then the third, and what is probably today the most important part of the competitive advantage, is professional skills. Professional skills are things like work ethic, punctuality, leadership, communication, work-life balance, stress management, critical thinking, emotional intelligence, problem solving, networking, flexibility. All of these things are critically important today for us to be able to connect the dots to a competitive advantage for young people. And so professional skills, which a lot of you may call them soft skills. I changed the term about 10 years ago to professional skills because I think professional skills or soft skills makes it sound like they're unimportant when I think they're the darn near most important things we can give our young people today. And so professional skills are critical. Robust academic knowledge, technical competencies, and professional skills working together to create a tremendous competitive advantage in our young people so that they are coming out into a world prepared to adapt accordingly. You know, there was recently a statistic that 65% of third graders in America today will likely work in careers and occupations that do not exist today. That's an extraordinary stat. Because if you really wrap your head around that, that means the information and what we give young people today has to be these three critical things so that they can connect the dots with where they want to go for their own unique interests, talents, and abilities. And so that's where we sit today on the scale of competitive advantage.
So how do we do this with millions of others? We have to embrace a concept that I just simply call the light at the end of the tunnel. Light at the end of the tunnel's always had two key components in it. What does their career and lifestyle look like? In other words, what does it look like at the light at the end of the tunnel? What draws them through the tunnel? Because no one's going to do the work, the labor, the effort, and the skill development, the academic rigor, and everything that is necessary unless there is a light to draw you through doing all the work and the effort associated with it. And if I were to ask all of you today, between the word career and lifestyle, which one's most important to the young people in your sphere of influence? When I ask that question around the country, I get every audience member to raise their hand or yell up, lifestyle. Clearly, it's lifestyle, which is true. Because every decision a young person makes today is based on how it affects their lifestyle. Career has actually become a lifestyle decision. And so here, this may be an aha moment for some of you, but if you want to start a substantive career conversation, either in your home, your classroom, or even your place of business, if you want to start that substantive conversation, do not start with career. Start with lifestyle. Two questions I love to ask young people today. What do you love to do? What do you do well? What do you love to do? And what do you do well? That will lead you down a myriad of follow-up questions that you can ask to truly understand where they sit on a spectrum of lifestyle. See, young people today have this incredible spectrum of lifestyle, and you have to kind of determine where they sit in this to understand how career becomes relevant to them and how your vision, your culture, either in your home, classroom, or place of business, matches this particular spectrum, right? There's young people over here on this end of the spectrum who want, to live life, like a millionaire. They want to live life like a Kardashian. But there are those on this end of the spectrum who just want 2 hot meals a day. And then, of course, there's everything in between. But once you understand the story behind their eyes, it allows you to have a substantive and relevant conversation about career and being able to move forward. but you have to connect with them on lifestyle common ground in order to be able to have that conversation. And that becomes critically important moving forward. And so connecting education with purpose and employment with passion recognizes that we have to start in our educational systems as early as elementary school, connecting to middle school and on into high school. We have to create the purpose necessary so that young people today understand how they can continue to move forward and how they can connect the dots to get into whatever employment, so that they're getting the education and experience necessary in order to accomplish whatever it is at the light at the end of their tunnel. And that becomes so important. But even in education with purpose, which I think is a simple concept, every piece of education should have purpose. Young people need to know, why is this important? How will I use this? And how will this move me forward to whatever it is I want to achieve? And whatever they want to achieve has to be based on their own unique interests, talents, and abilities. Not what we as adults want for them, but what they want for themselves. There's two different purpose modes. And the first of these purpose modes is what I call active purpose. You'll see 6 adjectives sitting here on the screen with me, and you could add to this. I know I could add to this, but here are the ones that I chose, right? Connected, engaged, accepted, prepared, stable, growing. You could add a lot of other adjectives to this, but these are the people who are moving forward in the tunnel. You may know, for those of you that are already, on this call who are employers and educators, you know what someone in active purpose looks like. They show up every day, they see a light at the end of the tunnel, and they're stepping toward whatever that is that they want to accomplish. But on the other side of active purpose is people who are in static purpose. Static purpose simply means you're standing still in the tunnel. You don't see a light at the end of the tunnel that you want to walk toward. And so that static purpose might be because you're disconnected, apathetic, distracted, overwhelmed, stressed, surviving. Again, maybe there's a bunch of other additional adjectives you would add to this list. I know I could probably add it, and they're dealing with any one or a myriad of these things together. But the common denominator is they're standing still in the tunnel. They don't see a light, they don't see something worth moving toward, or there's something in their way, or they're quite frankly, maybe they're afraid of taking that step, afraid of being wrong. There's lots of things that are possible at that point. But our challenge is this. Almost all the students who are standing still in the tunnel today in static purpose in our educational system believe that education is just another problem they have. Every day it's just another problem. In fact, we're spending billions of dollars to simply help young people today survive school, when what we really need to be doing is transitioning them from static purpose to active purpose so that education actually becomes their solution. Now, I realize as adults, it's very easy for us to say to ourselves, well, of course education is their solution. I mean, the more education you have, becoming a lifelong learner, you could talk about all the things, but from the perspective of the learner, if they don't view it as their solution, they won't move forward in the tunnel. And so we have to be able to pivot and help young people today make that transition. Plutarch, around 100 AD, he says that the mind is not a vessel to be filled, but a fire to be kindled. And so in a reflective kind of way, I would love to ask each of you today, in America today, and in your organization, if you're an educational organization, are we largely filling vessels or are we kindling flames? And I ask this of audiences across North America. And I asked them to just consider and to reflect for a moment, what are we trying to do most? Because in my view, in many places I go around North America, is that we're doubling down, it seems, all the time on filling the vessel, passing the tests, making sure that we're putting lots of knowledge, into their heads. And that's important. I'm a big fan of putting knowledge in heads. But we're doing it at the sacrifice of kindling the flame first. Because of our educational system today, I think it's very difficult for teachers today to find the time to carve out a human connection with young people today and to kindle the flame. And so we're doubling down on filling the vessel at a time in history where we're with, Generation Z, 8 to 25 years old, where it's a non-negotiable. You have to kindle the flame before they will ever let you fill the vessel. But we're trying to fill the vessel, but spending very little time kindling the flame. And so we have to kindle the flame first, and then we can fill the vessel. And that's moving them from static purpose to active purpose to be able to move forward. And part of this journey with purpose is creating alignment in what we're trying to accomplish. So, here on the screen, I've put, a teacher, and this could be a teacher, this could be a counselor, it could be an administrator, it could be an employer, it could be a supervisor, it could be a parent. In this case, I'm going to make it a teacher just for illustrative purposes. And so every teacher shows up every day, and I know lots of teachers across America, and they all have goals when they walk in. They might have a single goal, they may have multiple goals today. They might be the student learning objectives. They may want to, just get through a certain part of the curriculum, teach a certain skill or piece of knowledge. Or they may want students to behave today. And they come in with that goal. But then you have to recognize that every student is walking in every day and they have their own goal. And their goal may have nothing to do with what the teacher wants to teach. In fact, their goal may be completely disconnected and misaligned. Their goal may be that they were up till 4 o'clock in the morning on social media, and now they want to kind of take a breather and put their head down and just rest. Maybe they haven't eaten yet. Maybe they've got some human needs that have to be met first before they're willing to put the time in. And then when you recognize that the teacher's goal and the student's goal might be different, you have to recognize, well, now you may have 25 kids or 50 kids or 80 kids in this course of a day who all have different goals and they're trying to accomplish different things. And until we actually bring these things into alignment, meaning that teacher and student are aligned in the goal of moving forward towards a light at the end of the tunnel that is relevant based on every individual student's unique interests, talents, and abilities, that's what allows the shift to take place in active purpose.